Kevin's family background is as poor as mine. We agreed to support each other and work part-time, while studying to go to the same university. On the day the college entrance examination results came out, I went to find him to fill out the application form. But I heard classmates in the classroom congratulating him. "Young master. With this score, you can get into Peking University. Agrada is really amazing. It can be said that she has been fully utilized," he said with a smile. "After all, she is the top student in the school. The effect is better than the tutor my mom hired." The more he talked, the more he showed off. "And it's still free." In the next second, I pushed the door open and entered. Kevin's face turned pale as he looked at me. "Agrada. I didn't mean that," I sneered. "Young master of the Beijing Circle. Have you had enough of taking free advantages?" I stopped at the door of their class and took a deep breath to calm down my emotions. I held the application form and rushed towards Kevin's classroom, my steps full of excitement. Just as I was about to step in, but then I heard, "Congratulations, Pei Xiao. The score you estimated is enough to get into Peking University, right? They say the actual score will always be higher than what you estimated. You are definitely going to Peking University." I remembered that there is only one person surnamed Pei in their class. That is Kevin. The classroom was very lively. Even though the door was open, no one noticed me. Then I heard someone teasing again. "Young master. In my opinion, Agrada is really amazing. She brought you." Who was at the bottom of the class? To the top 30 in the grade. You are really making the most of having a girlfriend and a little teacher at the same time. I felt a chill all over and was like falling into an ice cave. It turns out that the young master Pei and young master they were talking about were really Kevin. Not like me, a poor student who has always been applying for student scholarships. Then why did he deceive me? Just to let me tutor him? In the next second, Kevin personally answered my question. "After all, she is the top student in the school. How is it? Is the effect better than the tutor my mom hired?" His voice was casual and flippant, but his words were like the scythe of the god of death, gently swung up and then down, killing my self-righteous, beautiful and innocent first love. There was a burst of laughter in the classroom. "So, young master Pei, did you and Agrada play teacher Stud and troll Pale a lot?" This sentence suddenly caused another burst of laughter. But suddenly, for some reason, it became quiet. Someone carefully looked at Kevin's face. "Young master Pei, did we say something wrong?" "Shut up. Anyway, Agrada is after all young master Pei's girlfriend." Kevin was facing away from me. I couldn't see the expression on his face. I only heard him chuckle. His tone was a bit frivolous. "What girlfriend? She is just something that came for free. Why not take it if it's offered?" I held my breath. My heart seemed to be torn apart by an invisible hand. Countless sadness and grievances came out from inside. Finally, there was endless anger. My body was trembling. Kevin's careless voice rang in my ears again. "If it weren't for my mom giving me an ultimatum to improve my academic performance and not lose to those illegitimate children outside, do you think Agrada would catch my eye?" Haha. Young master Pei is awesome. Agrada should burn incense and pray all night. Pray to the Buddha to bless her to always study so well and be useful to our young master Pei. There were even people imitating what I said. "Young master Pei, please don't abandon me. I will study hard for you." The girls around all looked over there. Their faces didn't look good. But with Kevin's identity as the young master of the Beijing Circle exposed, they couldn't offend Kevin for me. But I was still grateful that they cast condemning glances at Kevin. This meant that I was not wrong. I was just too stupid. When I was bullied, Kevin stood up to protect me. He beat up those hooligans. He joked that he didn't need me to repay him with my body. He just needed me to tutor him in his studies. And I was grateful to him and never doubted his words. I just felt that his temperament was different. But I still believed his words about his poor family background. When I found a part-time job, I took him along. I was just a girl who fell in love at first sight with a boy who saved me and studied and worked part-time with me. But now, I don't like Kevin anymore. A girl saw me and gasped. Her eyes immediately glanced over at Kevin. I took a long breath silently and walked in. A boy who was surrounding Kevin also saw me. His eyes instantly widened and he shouted, "Young Master Pei." Kevin's back paused slightly. He turned around. At the moment when his eyes met mine, countless astonishment and panic flashed in his eyes. Agrada? I didn't mean that. This sentence seemed to be blurted out subconsciously by him. After saying it, even he frowned, as if asking himself why he had to explain to me. I looked into Kevin's eyes and sneered coldly, "Young master of the Beijing Circle? Have you had enough of taking free advantages?" Kevin's eyes darkened. He sat there without moving. I chuckled. "Whether you've had enough or not, it ends here. Kevin, break up." After I finished speaking, I turned and left. Suddenly, my wrist was held tightly from behind. I turned around and met steep Kevin and dark eyes. Agrada. His voice was cold and tense. "Explain clearly." I slowly brushed off his hand and firmly repeated those two words, "Break up." Kevin stared at me intently. Suddenly, he laughed and regained his usual carefree manner. "Okay, then break up. Anyway, it won't be me who regrets it." He turned around and strode back to the classroom. He said coldly to those people blocking the door, "Is it good looking?" Those people immediately scattered. I turned and went back to my classroom. When filling out the application form, I no longer hesitated at all. I wrote Peking University on all 3 application forms. In the evening, when my mom came back from work, I had already prepared a table of dishes. "Mom, I applied to Peking University." My mom's face was full of relief. Looking at me, her eyes were full of pride. "Good." She nodded emphatically. The wrinkles at the corners of her eyes became even deeper. I also smiled. My heart was still a bit sour. Since my dad passed away, my mom and I have depended on each other. I really don't want to be separated from her. After eating and washing the dishes, I went back to my room. Suddenly, my cell phone rang. It was Kevin calling. I thought about it and still answered. Kevin's voice was as usual, as if what happened at school today was just a dream I had. "Has your anger subsided?" His words reminded me that it wasn't a dream. I was really angry at that time. But not anymore. "It has subsided," I replied. Kevin laughed happily. "It was just a joke. Why did you take it so seriously? How did you fill out the application form?" Peking University. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone. "Really?" "Yes." There was another moment of silence. Then came Kevin's cold voice. "Agrada, are you still insisting on breaking up with me?" "Yes." "Okay." Kevin seemed to be suppressing his anger. He said in a deep voice, "Agrada, even if you regret it later, don't come and beg me. I won't give you a chance." He hung up the phone. I then put his number on the blacklist. I also deleted him on WeChat. "Kevin, I won't regret it. Never." My cell phone vibrated again. I picked it up. It was a WeChat message from Rafa E. "Rafa E, have you filled out the application form?" I replied, "Yes." Peking University. Rafa E, "Good. I'll wait for you at Peking University." Good. In fact, I had already received calls from Tingshui University and Peking University, especially in the days after the college entrance examination ended. The 2 schools used countless tricks to recruit me. Now everything has been settled. The school immediately sent someone to deliver the admission letter to me. Rafa E was among the people who came. It was a surprise and also a pleasant surprise for me. "Why are you here?" Rafa E handed me the admission letter. "Of course I'm here to deliver this to you." That's not what I meant. The person who came with Rafa E was named Roman. He gently nudged Rafa E. "The little schoolgirl is so beautiful." I said, "You never participate in these things. Why are you so eager to come and recruit students this time?" Rafael glanced at me and reminded Roman in a low voice, "Don't talk nonsense." He paused and his voice seemed to be a bit lower. "She has a boyfriend. If rumors spread, it won't be good." The person opened his mouth and immediately nodded. I was talking nonsense. Little schoolgirl. I am such a person. I also smiled. It's okay. That's right. I just like to joke. Then I turned around and poured 2 glasses of water. It's noon. Let's go out and eat later. When will Aunt In get off work? I still want to say hello to her. Rafael asked. Do you and Aunt In decide where to go for fun? The school gave me the benefit of a 6-day family tour to attract me to go there. Go to Dolly. My mom wants to go there and have a look. Rafael nodded. Roman seemed to realize something only then. He asked curiously, do you two know each other for a long time? How come you even know little schoolgirl's mom? Rafael looked at me and curled his lips. Yes. We grew up together. I lived here before. When I was in my first year of high school. Rafael was taken back to Beijing by his dad. He never came back. I was sad for a long time after he left. At that time, he video called me every night and comforted me. He said it would be fine if I got into a university in Beijing. He also said he would come back and accompany me. But I refused. Wait for me there. That's what I said at that time. After he knew that my dream university was Peking University, he said he would wait for me at Peking University. Roman's voice interrupted my thoughts. Damn. So you two are childhood sweethearts? He looked at me curiously. No. Little schoolgirl. How handsome is your boyfriend? Is he even more handsome than Aryan Ci? Why don't you consider Aryan Ci? Roman. Rafael said coldly. His voice carried a hint of warning. Roman immediately made a zipping motion on his mouth. I'll shut up. Shut up. At noon, I invited the two of them to eat outside. After that, they sent me home and then went back to the hotel. I sent a WeChat message to my mom and told her that Rafael was the one who came to deliver the admission letter to me. When my mom came back from work, she bought a lot of groceries and came back with Rafael. Yan Ci. Sit down. I'll make your favorite shredded potatoes with vinegar right away. Rafael pointed to the kitchen and then went in to help my mom. The kitchen is not very big. There is not enough space for 3 people. So I didn't go in. I ate snacks and watched TV in the living room. Although he hasn't come back for several years, he still has endless things to say to my mom. After eating, he went directly into the kitchen and started washing the dishes. He said a lot more to my mom in the kitchen. It was almost 8:30. Rafael washed his hands and came out of the kitchen. Aunt's in. Agrada. I'm going back to the hotel. I'll see you off. I stood up and went downstairs with Rafael. The streetlights in the community are not very bright. I walked on the path with Rafael. The sounds under our feet clearly reached my ears. Suddenly, he asked me, why did you decide to apply to Peking University again? I glanced at him sideways and felt so embarrassed. I broke up with Kevin. Rafael's footsteps paused. I turned to face him. The light was too dim. His eyes were too dark. I couldn't see the emotions in his eyes. I casually said, I was deceived by him. Rafael didn't speak. I didn't know what he was thinking. Was he laughing at me? After all, I had even wanted to give up Peking University for Kevin. Brother Yan Ci. Actually, I'm not that love-struck. Right? After I found out that he was deceiving me, I immediately proposed a breakup. Very decisively. And I also immediately changed my application form. So he wouldn't laugh at me. Right? When I was a child. When he watched me do homework and I made a wrong question, he would mercilessly laugh at me and deliberately mess up my hair. Agrada. Why are you so stupid? Let me see what's in your head. Now he must be thinking, it turns out that Agrada's head is filled with love-struck thoughts. Rafael silently stared at me. In the dim light, he softly spoke. But his tone was firm. No. Agrada. You just like someone. There's nothing wrong with that. It's his fault. I felt very relieved. Really? Thank you. I was comforted. I smiled from the bottom of my heart. Then let's go. I took the lead and turned around. But behind me, there was no sound of Rafa's footsteps. Instead, Agrada. He called me. I turned around and met his deep gaze. I heard him ask me, "Are you sad?" Sad. Surely I will be sad. I really liked Kevin. But I know and I'm sure that I will get better soon. A little bit. I will get better. Rafa nodded with a smile. Yes. You will get better. My mom took 7 days off. The two of us went to Dali and had a great time for 6 days. After we came back, my mom continued to go to work. I also started my summer job mode. Rafa returned to Beijing. Between us, the daily video calls resumed. This day, in the coffee shop where I was working, I met Kevin and his classmate Jay who were about to leave. Both of them ordered mochas. I delivered the coffee and said enjoy your drink, and then turned around. Agrada. Jay called me. I turned back and served with a smile. Customer. Do you need anything else? Accidentally, my peripheral vision fell on Kevin. He was sitting on the chair in an arrogant and unrestrained manner. It was very in line with his identity as the young master of the Beijing Circle. He just looked at me and didn't say a word. Jay said, "Young Master Pei is the young master of the Beijing Circle. If you obediently admit your mistake to him, you will still be young Master Pei's girlfriend. Then you won't have to work so hard." Then he left to be busy. I was so angry that I laughed. Customer. It's working hours now. If you don't have any other needs. Jay hissed. Agrada. Why are you so stubborn? Young Master Pei was just joking. I couldn't listen anymore and turned around and left. After a while, they ordered again at that table. 2 mango mouses. This time I didn't go to deliver. Soon the waiter came back and brought back the 2 mango mouses. Agrada. Those 2 people know you? They said they want you to deliver it. I delivered the mango mouses and then turned around and left. Kevin finally said his first sentence. I still want to order. I turned around and reminded. Scan the code or go to the counter. He raised his eyebrows slightly. I want to order from you. I endured. What do you need? Kevin rattled off a bunch of orders. I wrote them down. Is there anything else you need? I don't know which word of mine offended him. Suddenly he got angry and said loudly, "Yes. Bring me one of everything on the menu." Okay. I nodded with a smile. My colleagues also noticed Kevo's abnormality. But none of them dared to come forward and say anything. The one named Naxhide whispered a complaint about being so wasteful. We kept putting things on Kevin's table. Soon it was almost impossible to fit anymore. For some reason, he suddenly stood up. Old son. Let's go. When Jay saw him go to pay, he stayed behind and whispered to me, Agrada. Young Master Pei will return to Beijing tomorrow. Just say some soft words to him. He will forgive you. I looked at Jay coldly. You tell Kevin that if this is what he means. Let him tell me himself. Don't be a coward who uses others to convey messages. He has no guts. Jay shook his head. The Grata. I really don't know what to say about you. Do you know what a precious opportunity you have missed? Other girls can't even ask for it. You will regret it. The next morning at around 10 o'clock, I received a WeChat message from Jay. Jay, young Master Pei has boarded the plane. He even bought you a plane ticket. Igrata. If you were with young Master Pei like before, you wouldn't have to do part-time jobs everywhere like now. So now Kevin looks down on me doing part-time jobs? After restoring his identity as the young master of the Beijing Circle. Does he think he is superior? I also blacklisted Jay's WeChat. This longest summer vacation passed like this. I went to Beijing 2 days in advance. Early in the morning, my mom woke me up. She was afraid that I would miss the high-speed train. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. My mom went to open the door. Yan Ci? Why are you? Aunt's in. I came here to do some business. By the way, I'll pick up Agrada and take her to school. Rafael came in with my mom. Seeing that my suitcase was already in the living room, he naturally picked it up. The car I called is downstairs. Let's go. I didn't want my mom to take me to the high-speed rail station either. I said goodbye to my mom at home, happily followed Rafael, and got in the car. After leaving the community, I looked back and saw my mom standing at the entrance of the community. The tears that I had been holding back suddenly came down. Rafael handed me a piece of paper. Thank you. I sniffed and wiped away my tears. Rafael gently rubbed my head like when I was a child. If you miss Aunt Skin, we can come back to see her on weekends. Anyway, it only takes 3 hours by high-speed rail. I nodded, yes. Although I was reluctant to be separated from my mom, having Rafael by my side at this moment was somewhat comforting to me. When I arrived in Beijing, it wasn't like I was in an unfamiliar place. Brother Yin Ci, I've always had a question I wanted to ask you. After getting on the high-speed rail, I finally spoke. When I heard that, I said I wouldn't apply to Peking University anymore. Were you angry? Rafael silently looked at me for a while and said, I was quite angry. I was embarrassed to say that actually. Now that I think about it, I am also quite angry with myself. The two of us were chatting. The 3 hours passed quickly. Rafael's car was parked in the parking lot of a nearby shopping mall. It looked very expensive. The place where I live now is near the school. It's just that it's not easy to book a hotel during the start of school season. Rafael's voice interrupted my thoughts. I looked at him sideways. That's okay. We can stay together. Anyway, it's only for 2 days. I have always regarded Rafael as my brother. Brother Yin Ci. There are 2 beds in your house, right? Rafael seemed to be choked. He slightly turned his head and coughed. He tightly clenched the steering wheel. His voice was a bit hoarse. Agrada. Don't talk. Obviously he was the one who started it. Rafael's house was very clean. So clean that it didn't even seem like someone lived there. He took me to the master bedroom. It's all tidied up. You stay in this room. Everything is new. Use it freely. I was still very shy. I shyly suggested, or I'd better stay in the second bedroom. It feels like I'm occupying the magpie's nest. Rafael gently pushed the back of my head. Stay here if I tell you to. Thank you. I grinned and went in. Then I called my mom and told her that I had arrived at Rafael's place. My mom asked me to give the phone to Rafael again. I don't know what she said to Rafael. Rafael kept looking at me and smiling. Then he said, Don't worry. Aunt's in. After saying that, he hung up the phone. I took the phone. I haven't finished yet. Take a rest. We'll go out to eat later. Rafael walked out. At the door, he stopped again and turned around and asked me, Or do you want to eat what I cook? Let's go out to eat. I'll treat. I can't stay here for free. Although when I was a child, I did always go to his house to eat and drink for free. Rafael seemed to see through my thoughts. He said sadly, The little girl has grown up. She knows how to be polite to her brother. I suddenly found that the feeling between me and Rafael was back. When he was in front of me before, he was very lively. That is, the so-called not serious. In the evening, we didn't go out to eat. He took me to the supermarket to buy groceries and then came back and cooked. I visited everywhere. On the bedside table in the second bedroom, I saw a photo. It was a photo of me and him from the year he left. In the photo, I was wearing my junior high school uniform, with a ponytail. I tilted my head and showed a big smile at the camera. Rafael stood next to me. He was 1.5 heads taller than me. His slender fingers made a V sign on top of my head. He had kept this photo until now, and it was just placed on the bedside. My heart stirred slightly. I always felt that something was quietly changing. Hey! A warm breath drilled into my ear. I held my breath. Suddenly put down the photo frame and turned around. Rafael stood up straight. There were twinkles of smiles in his bright eyes. Is it good looking? At this moment, I suddenly realized what was quietly changing. A flush climbed from my cheek to the tip of my ear. I opened my mouth. My voice was a bit stammering. You have always kept this photo. Yes. Rafa'i replied lightly. In my nervousness. He spoke again. I have always kept it. I look at it every night. I felt the temperature on my cheeks keep rising and becoming hot. I swallowed. For a moment. I just stared at Rafa'i blankly. He raised his hand and rubbed my head. Finished looking? Come and help me. I rescued myself from that awkward and sullen feeling. I nodded repeatedly. Okay. Then I went to the kitchen before him. I was familiar with the kitchen work. But at this moment, I didn't know what to do. Wash this. Rafa'i handed me the green vegetables. I washed the vegetables in the sink. I was so serious. But my thoughts drained back to when I was a child. That year I was 12 years old. I stayed overnight at Rafa'i's house. That night there was thunder. I was scared. So I took my pillow and ran to Rafa'i's room, and got into his quilt. He was very angry at that time. He refused to let me get on his bed no matter what. He also said that if I got on his bed again, he would beat me to death. I was so angry that I cried and went to find Grandma Yan. That is Rafa'i's grandma. Grandma Yan scolded Rafa'i and told him not to bully me anymore. That night, I fell asleep crying. I didn't talk to Rafa'i for several days. It was only when he bought me cotton candy to tempt me that I forgave him without backbone. Is it washed yet? Let me see. Rafa'i came over. My memories were interrupted. He picked up a green vegetable and looked at it. His slender fingers unconsciously brushed into the back of my hand. I withdrew my hand as if scalded, muttering softly, "Of course it's clean. I often do chores. I'm not inept. Are you angry?" Rafa'i flicked his wet hand gently at my face. Tiny drops of water splashed on my face. I reflexively narrowed my eyes and counterattacked with both hands. Rafa'i laughed heartily. I also laughed. The tense atmosphere became extremely relaxed like this. The two of us made dinner amid the horseplay. After eating, he cut a quarter of a watermelon for me, and let me eat it with a spoon. He also piled up a bunch of snacks in front of me, and turned on the TV. Eat. I'll be done soon. I sat cross-legged on the sofa, and watched him go into the kitchen. I knew that I couldn't treat Rafa'i as my brother anymore. It was dark. I tossed and turned in bed and couldn't sleep. I couldn't even play with my phone. A sentence kept echoing in my mind. Rafa'i likes me. But then I thought I was too selfish, clinging to the friendship with him when I was young. So now I took his care for granted. But I couldn't give him anything. So early the next morning, when we were having breakfast, I said to Rafa'i, "Brother Yanci, I'll go to the hotel later. I've already booked it." Rafa'i's movement of picking up chopsticks paused slightly. He looked up at me. I felt a bit guilty. "Why?" he asked faintly. When I was struggling with what I should say, I heard him say again, "Is it because I like you that you find it troublesome?" I didn't expect him to say that he liked me so bluntly. For a moment, I couldn't even find my own voice. Rafa'i's expression became a bit more serious. "Did I scare you last night?" I shook my head. He sighed faintly. "I didn't want you to see it so early. I was afraid of scaring you. But I can't control myself. I always want to be close to you. If you find it inconvenient, I'll go out and stay. I don't about you staying alone in a hotel. Brother Yanci, just listen to me this one time. Okay?" He asked me and gave me a smile that I was familiar with. When my parents sent me to Anne every time when I was a child, they would always tell me to listen to Brother Yanci. But he never said that. This was the first time. I was silent for a while and nodded, "Okay." Rafa'i took me to stroll around the school. In the evening, he took me to the night market near his house. After eating, drinking, and having fun, I suggested walking back to help digestion. Meeting Kevin was unexpected. He seemed to have been standing under the streetlight for a long time. When I looked up, I bumped into his deep black eyes. Who is he? Kevin's deep voice was filled with bone-chilling coldness. I withdrew my surprise and ignored him. I whispered to Rafael to leave quickly and quickened my pace. Kevin suddenly seemed to go crazy and chased after us. He grabbed my wrist forcefully. Agrada. I ask you, who is he? Rafael stood in front of me and gently pushed him away with his hand, saying in a low voice, "Let go." Kevin stared at him fiercely. What does it matter to you if I talk to my own girlfriend? We've already broken up. I forcefully shook off Kevin's hand. The tense atmosphere made my heart race. I gently grabbed Rafael's arm. Brother Yanci. Let's go. Damn. Kevin suddenly went crazy and punched Rafael hard in the face. Kevin wanted to continue attacking. Although Rafael dodged in time, he was still injured. I pushed Kevin away forcefully. Are you crazy? Kevin pointed at Rafael, his eyes wide with rage. Did you break up with me because of him? Agrada. Did you fall in love with someone else? Kevin. I was so angry that my heart was burning. I knew exactly why I broke up with him. Pushing the blame onto others is your style? You still won't admit your mistake until now. Instead, you bite back at me. I really regret having liked you. Get lost. I took a step back and distanced myself from him. Kevin's eyes were filled with a storm. Agrada. I don't want to see you anymore. Brother Yanci. Let's go. I took Rafael's hand and dragged him away quickly. Kevin's unwilling and angry roar came from behind. Fortunately, Rafael had a first aid kit here. While treating his wound, I apologized. I'm sorry. Brother Yanci. I don't know how he found this place. He's like a madman. I've implicated you. The iodine must be very painful when applied to the wound. But Rafael's brow didn't move at all. What do you like about him? Can you tell me? I was full of anger and didn't want to mention that madman Kevin. But I still told Rafael everything about how I met Kevin, our relationship, and then our breakup. Rafael didn't speak, but I clearly felt that there was something wrong with his aura. Brother Yanci? Rafael curled his lips and smiled. It's nothing. I didn't believe him. He frowned and hissed. Be gentle. It hurts. At this moment, the cell phone rang. It was a strange local number calling. I guessed it was Kevin as soon as I saw it. Normally, I would definitely reject it directly. But now I was full of anger. Wait a minute. I'll answer a call. I took the phone and went back to my room and answered the call. Evan's voice came immediately. Agrada. What's the matter between you and that person? Are you living together? We've broken up. Kevin. I remind you for the last time. Today's incident must not happen again. Otherwise, I will call the police directly. You never liked me at all, right? If you liked me, how could you be so determined and to break up with me just because of those few boastful words I said? Agrada. Don't you know how I've treated you during our time together? Don't call me anymore. Did you fall in love with him? Have you kissed him? Have you slept with him? Agrada. I haven't even touched you yet. Get lost. I yelled into the phone. While hanging up the phone, my body also began to tremble violently. Rafael came in. I was already in tears. Rafael came over and hugged me, patting my back gently. It was clearly his fault. He said so many hurtful things, without a single apology. Now that we've broken up, what right does he have to question me? Why? Bastard. He's a bastard. Let's not think about him anymore. Rafael comforted me softly. I took a deep breath, got out of Rafael's embrace, and wiped away my tears with my hand. I'm fine. Now I finally see his true colors. I'm glad that I broke up with him. In the middle of the night, the cell phone rang suddenly and woke me up from my sleep. I answered the call in a daze. Jay's voice came from the other end. Agrada. Young Master Pei is drunk. He keeps calling your name. Come and see him. He can't drink anymore. If he drinks anymore, he'll become an idiot. I was instantly awake. I sat up and said angrily, "He's already an idiot." Jay's tone was pleading. "Come and see him. Grandma. Agrada. I don't believe you can't see that young Master Pei really likes you. He always complains that his family is too strict with him. Originally, he didn't consider universities in Beijing. After knowing that you chose Peking University, he immediately changed his mind without hesitation. Isn't it all for you? If he really just regarded you as a free tutor, how could he do so many things for you? He bought an apartment near Peking University. It's for you, Jay. I'm not the one who did something wrong. I'm not the one who hurt others with words. Neither you nor Kevin has the right to say anything about me." I hung up the phone and blacklisted this number again. Suddenly I felt very annoyed and tired. I planned to find an opportunity to talk to Kevin and make a clean break with him completely so that he wouldn't bother me in the future. But I was one step too late. He, along with Jay and a few boys, surrounded the downstairs of Rafai's house. As soon as we went out, Kevin rushed over and pulled me aside. Those boys surrounded Rafai. "What are you doing?" I shook off Kevin's hand. "Are you crazy?" Kevin looked at Rafai contemptuously. His tone was casual and annoying. "I know you grew up with him. I also know that he is the son of the current chairman of the Fu Group. But Agrada. He is just a bastard. You have no future following him." Slap. I was almost controlled by anger and slapped Kevin hard in the face. I had always known about Rafai's background. Back then, when Grandma Yun passed away, and he was taken back by the Fu family. Although we had always been in contact, I had never asked about these things. Even when we met again this time, there were several times when I wanted to ask him. But every time I swallowed the words before I could say them. As long as he was living well. Rafai's father and his current wife had a business marriage. When they got married, they both knew that there was someone else in each other's hearts and didn't ask about each other's emotional lives. Only I knew that Rafai was not a bastard at all. He had always hated his father. Back then, when his mother was lying on the sickbed, she tightly held his hand and told him not to hate his father. She said she didn't regret it in her life. She only hoped that he could make up with his father. Rafai agreed. His mother took her last breath. That day, he hugged me and cried for a very long time. It was also the only time I saw Rafai cry. From then on, I tried to make Rafai happy every day. His father had wanted to take him back to the Fu family very early on. But he always refused. He said he didn't hate him anymore. But he wanted to stay and live with Grandma. Until Grandma Yan passed away. He returned to Beijing. Before leaving, he told me that he would wait for me in Beijing. In the month after he left, he video called me every day. One night after 12 o'clock, he suddenly called me and told me that he missed me. I was half asleep at that time. The next morning when I remembered this, I asked him what was wrong. He said it was nothing. I thought Rafai must be having a hard time in the Fu family. At this moment, Kevin's casual words of bastard uncovered all of Rafai's scars. How could he be so bad? So inconsiderate of others' feelings? You hit me for him? Kevin gritted his teeth tightly, as if trying hard to suppress something. Sadness still overflowed from his eyes. Agrada. Do you really like him? Rafai came over a few steps and pulled me behind him. He looked down at Kevin like he was looking at an immature child. If you do something wrong, you should be brave enough to admit it. Be like a man. Saying sorry is not embarrassing. He paused and then said, but even if you apologize, others are not obliged to forgive you. These are two different things. After he finished speaking, he turned to me and said, let's go. I nodded and followed Rafai's steps. Rafai, do you like her that much? Even if she has been slept with by me several times. Rafai's footsteps paused. He let go of my hand and turned to smile at me. You go home first. My heart beat faster. Brother Yan Ci. Be good. Go home and wait for me. Rafai said with a smile, coaxing me like when I was a child. I knew what he was going to do. I shook my head vigorously. I'm fine. Brother Yan Ci. Let's go. Rafael sighed. I can't leave you scared. After saying that, he turned and walked towards Kevin. Those people brought by Kevin surrounded Rafael. In no time, they were all knocked down by Rafael. He grabbed Kevin's collar and his fists rained down on Kevin's face like raindrops, each punch landing solidly. Kevin started to fight back. The two of them fought together. Finally, they were pulled apart by the security guards in the community. Rafael's corner of the mouth and I were bleeding. Looking at Kevin again, he was really black and blue. I ran to Rafael. How are you? Does it hurt? Grata. Kevin's voice was filled with childish accusation. Like a child reporting. Don't you see that I'm more seriously injured? I turned around and gave him a cold look. You deserve it. In the following days, Kevin was really panicked. On the day I started school, although he also started school, he didn't go to school and blocked me at the school gate. There was no way. I could only go with him to a deserted place. Kevin's face was still swollen like a pig's head. He looked at me with red eyes, and had never been so humble as at this moment. Do you really like him? I impatiently frowned. It has nothing to do with you. What if I apologize to you? Kevin's tears fell in big drops. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have boasted and said those words. I shouldn't have said that you slept with me. I'm sorry. Grata. I spoke without thinking. Kevin. You don't really think you're wrong from the bottom of your heart. This is just your way to win me back. I took a long breath and then said, you don't really like me either. Otherwise, you wouldn't have said those hurtful words. I like you. I really like you. Grata. He slowly leaned over and begged. You're angry with me. You can hit me, or scold me. I accept it. Don't deny my feelings for you. Okay? He lowered his head and sobbed. I admit that at first I approached you indeed to let you tutor me. My mom pressured me so hard. If I don't study hard, she will send me abroad. I don't want to go abroad. So I used you. But in the process, I really fell in love with you. Grata. I really have you in mind for a lifetime. I was really crazy at that time. There was something wrong with my mind that I said those words. Those weren't my true words. I already regretted it when I said them. But I was also concerned about my face. His voice began to tremble. Grata. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me this time? I promise you that I will listen to you in everything from now on and never let you be hurt again. Let's be like before. Okay? I took a step back. The color on Kevin's face instantly faded. Grata. Kevin. I don't like you anymore. I really don't like you anymore. It's not just because he said those hurtful words to me. It's also because he has become someone I don't recognize anymore. Or maybe I never really saw his true face. Kevin, don't come to me anymore. Kevin really didn't come to find me again. Later, I heard that he went abroad. My life returned to calm again. College life is colorful. I don't have time to think about other things. It seemed like in the blink of an eye, the precious college time passed. After Rafael graduated, he opened his own company and managed it very well. After I graduated, I was recruited into his company. In these 4 years of college, he has always taken good care of me. Just like when we were kids. After entering his company, I knew that I still had to be taken care of by him. I couldn't help him much in life. So I worked hard. Facts have proved that I am not only strong in learning ability but also a rare talent in business. In the first year in the company, the project I was in charge of earned more than 10 million yuan for the company. I also got a bonus of 1 million yuan myself. I believe that soon I can settle down in Beijing and bring my mom over. Then I received a second project. This day I didn't get off work until almost 10 o'clock. Rafael had been waiting for me all this time. After graduating, he bought a house near the company. I also rented a house near the company. We walked back together. Along the way, I kept talking to him about my proposal. Rafa suddenly sighed. What's wrong? Did you find a problem? Rafa shook his head. What problem could there be? You earn so much money for me. I can't wait to worship you. I wouldn't dare to pick on your problem. What's wrong today? So sarcastic. What's wrong with you? Nothing. I just want to fall in love. He leaned over and bent down. Agrada. Don't you think brother is very pitiful? Almost 30 years old and still don't know what love is like. Help brother. I turned my head, pursed my lips and asked knowingly, how can I help you? Like this. Rafa held my hand and interlocked our fingers. I looked down at our tightly held hands. I took a few steps and stood in front of him. I stood on tiptoe and kissed his lips. And what about this? I had recognized my own heart. I have fallen in love with Rafa. Rafa's eyes lit up. I predicted that he was going to kiss me. So I turned and ran. The consequence of being caught up by Rafa was that I was taken home by him and kissed until my legs went weak while lying on the bed. He let me go breathlessly and coughed lightly. I'll take you home. I turned over and got up. Accidentally. I knocked over the photo frame on his bedside. The glass broke. I carefully picked up the photo. Rafa swept away the glass shards. I casually glanced at the back of the photo. On it, Rafa's handwriting was smooth and flowing. Agrada. Can you wait for me? I raised the corner of my mouth. I found a pen and wrote to words below. Can